Hello. Good evening. I remember on my quest, on my personal journey, I I pursued. There's the word. I pursued Rinzai Zen, the Japanese version of Zen, Chan from China through Korea and in Japan. And there's basically two schools, but it doesn't really matter. But I pursued, and my understanding was that my mission, what I hope to accomplish through this rigorous participation in a very demanding spiritual tradition, as far as sitting straight for long periods of time. They give you a koan, which is a puzzle, a mind puzzle that can't be solved, basically. It can't be solved rationally anyway, with what we call rationality. And it's like a koan is the most famous one is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? What is the sound of one hand clapping? It's a koan. And when you present to the Roshi, he would go through an elaborate ceremony. He'd get a special costume on, and very traditional, formal setting with just you and the Roshi, and he would ask you to solve your koan. Each practitioner was assigned his or her own particular special koan, unique to them. And the Roshi would ask you, okay, what's the solution? And no matter what you said, you can count on him saying that I hit you with the stick. And traditionally, in the tradition, they would actually physically hit you with the stick. Fortunately, when I was studying, the 33 years that I spent studying, they weren't hitting anybody with the stick anymore. But just metaphorically, they would say that I hit you with the stick. And long into the game, I figured out that probably the best answer is no answer, to not respond, to sit in silence. And you wouldn't get that ceremonial, I'll hit you with the stick. But if you put it in words, if you verbalized anything, no matter what, and especially if you thought you had a good one, especially if you thought, aha, I solved it, So my understanding was that I was studying the purpose, the end game of my Zen studying was, of course, enlightenment, which led to awakening. See the hierarchy: enlightened, you get in the light, to become awakened. There's a hierarchy, and people use those words interchangeably, but to me they're stages. Enlightenment, you get enlightened on the way. You bask in the light on the way to awakening. So the word target came by, but that's not really the word, right? The emphasis of my study, my Rinzai Zen study, was number one, to get rid of the ego, to destroy the ego. But maybe that's not number one, maybe that's number two, because number one was what allowed you, in my understanding, my very limited understanding, and I didn't ask. I'd never asked anyone in authority, but I always thought that you had to first still the mind through discipline, through meditation, still the mind, and then quiet the mind. so that you could sit in total silence. And that was the goal. 33 years I was trying to, much less, I never even got to the ego. 33 years I just dealt with the mind. No matter what I did, I had a monkey mind. It was just a never-ending conversation in my head. See, I rub my head because that monkey mind is still with me. And finally, in frustration, I gave up. And I came to understand that in Buddhist esoteric, in his pursuit, he gave up. He almost starved himself to death. I literally eat 1 grain of rice a day. Asceticism, the practice of torturing your body. So instead, I just tortured my mind because I always tried to silence the mind. Which really, I don't know if my mind speaking, but how many tools do we have in our arsenal? And my mind is a fine mind and a deep thinker. It's helped me to translate information to knowledge, to the ultimate wisdom, the nugget of gold, the nugget of wisdom. My mind was very critical in this process. So the whole time I was using my mind to mine for wisdom from information, discarding the useless, discarding the superfluous, letting it go. That was mind doing that, my mind. So I started seeing, okay, there's a higher mind, the big M mind, the capital M mind, and the little m, the monkey mind. So maybe I had to quiet the monkey mind, but still utilize this mind with the capital M. Anyway, this led to frustration. This led to giving me up because I thought, well, it must be my shortcoming that I couldn't even quiet the mind, much less silence it. And then I started spending time thinking about the ego. It's okay. We have to destroy the ego. We have to conquer. We have to defeat the ego. And that leads me to today's topic, the ego versus mind. So I still saw, even when I gave up on silencing the mind, I still thought that there was some modicum of hope that I could defeat the ego, that I could wipe it out and be ego-free. And that I was no more successful at that, or maybe even less successful at that than I was at quieting the mind on the road to totally silencing it. And through the years, I don't want to count the years since I gave up my Zen practice after 33 years of striving for towards those two ends. And then I started spending time, let's look at the ego, and a little bit by revelation, and some of it is very recent. This has continued, and I started seeing that I've addressed the ego and some of this other little sharings that the ego has a use, and it's a useful tool, just like the mind. Now the monkey mind, I started giving it tasks. Like fetch, like you throw a bone for your dog, or you throw a stick for your dog, and he will chase it and it come back and you can use your monkey mind. I said, give it a task, give it a chore. I would assign it a chore. I lost this, I don't know where this is. Resolve this issue for me. And it would be very content. And that was my way of that was very effective of getting the mind, at least I could get the mind from being center stage. I could forget it for a little while because it was often a task. And it was useful. So I called this talk ego versus mind. And the ego controls the mind. Okay? The ego wants to control the mind. The mind that the ego creates this three-dimensional world of falsity, this three-dimensional world of Maya. Maya means not real. This three-dimensional world of myself, my ego, I'm somebody, I'm this person, that I did this, and this is I. And this is all egoic, supported feedback. It encourages you to see separation, see that you were different than everybody else, see that you were separate. And this has led to loneliness and depression and all the things that plague us as 20th century beings. And it's all ego. It's all consequences of letting the ego conquer the mind, because that's what it wants to do. Okay? So I actually reversed the tables. I used my mind to, the task I took is, okay, what is this ego? It's just like the monkey mind didn't disappear, the ego didn't disappear. And as I traveled on my spiritual path, as I reached new level of awareness, I started seeing that the ego was sneaking back as a spiritual ego. Oh, I'm special, I'm extraordinary, when in fact we're so damn ordinary. That's not a secret, that's the truth. We're ordinary. We're extraordinarily ordinary, as I like to say. But the spiritual ego, wow, now I had to really balance something, because not only was it supporting this image, it's a spiritual image, so it's got to be good, right? The spiritual self. I'm this great adept, I'm this great master. It's so cute. The vanity, right? Anyway, conquering, that was the ego that was worth conquering, and it was conquerable by recognizing your ordinariness. And at the same time, recognizing that everyone was equally special or equally ordinary. Depends on if you're a pessimist or optimist. I'm kind of an optimist, so I think that everybody is extraordinary. So this journey and this trap, I'm warning you about this spiritual ego, because it's a lot more insidious, it's a lot more sneaky. Ego is such a sneaky thing. Until, you know what brought my ego to its knees, where it just looked, okay, I surrender up to you. And that was when I recognized that just as the mind can be a useful tool, is a useful tool, the ego is also a useful tool. And recently I've talked a lot about the ego is a receiver. And it, not only a receiver, it receives and it can broadcast. Broadcast in the sense, not broadcast, but you fine-tune the ego. It's like a radio dial again. It's a receiver, and then you tune it, and it can align with harmonic resonance. And that's what the spirit is. That's what the universal is. That's what the consciousness is. Harmonic, in harmony, resonates, responds. Resonate means to envelop, and you see some familiarity when you say that resonates with me. And as I'm speaking, I can feel the resonance of my voice in my lungs. And especially when I talk about sacred sounds. That's when I feel the spirit. That's when I relax, when I embrace the harmonic resonance, the song of the universe. And what the song is leading to me to, what's resonating from me, from being enveloped by the harmonic resonance, is that to say to all of you that might be watching, I can feel that you're evolving. I can feel that you're on the trail, on the path, on the journey, that you take, each step you take is a step closer to enlightenment, which you continue on the spiral journey, the spiraling to infinity, the spiraling journey. You inevitably are heading to the path of awakening. And more and more and more people are awakening. I'm looking at souls right now that I can see awakening. And it couldn't get a better time, could it? When the world seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. Dictators, suffering, wars, misery. Of course, nothing's new under the sun. That's old news, isn't it? The more things change, the more they remain the same. I think just that communication, we're more aware of it. But I want to encourage you. I want to say, I see you. I feel you. I hear you. I hear your ears opening to harmonic resonance. And I talked about the third ear, which is right here. We talk about the third eye, but never about, I haven't heard anyone talk about the third ear. But that third ear is what hears the song of the universe. And not only hears it, but remember the ego is a receiver. And the wisdom and the knowledge that you receive, you can broadcast, you can share. So keep going. You're getting close. You're beautiful. I love each and every one of you.